Thank you. So when I first reached out to the mayor and police chief about doing something for the town, I can tell you, Chief Sanfilippo, immediately the first thing out of his mouth was, Jim, what can we do for you? Let us know what we can do and we will be there for you. So I've been in touch with Chief Sanfilippo many times, probably more than he wanted to. I don't know if he's here. I know he was coming at some point, but Chief, if you're here, thank you very much. And I also want to thank the Montvale Police Department. I want to thank the Montvale Police Department for their support as well. You know, today we're here to come together as a community, and we're here to celebrate a whole lot of people and a whole lot of different lives. We happen to be extremely fortunate to live in a community that has a police force like we have, and I don't think anybody should ever take that for granted. We know what can happen, so I do want to thank our police force. Thank you. To all of the children that are here, and there are several, I thank you and applaud you for coming today, and I applaud your parents for bringing you. This is very sadly a topic that you should not be experiencing. It's not something that you should be learning about as current events. This is something that you should be learning about in the history books from the 1960s and before. This should not be current events still today, but sadly it is. And I applaud you for coming and standing up for your rights and future generations to come. We know that racism and discrimination are not easy topics to talk about. Many people would rather not talk about it. Many people would rather ignore it. Some people would much rather just let the storm pass by, try to lay low and go under the radar. But we as a family, the Freeman family, were not comfortable in doing that. We felt we needed to do something more. And while I have often yearly talked about, race relations in a way that elementary students could understand here at Memorial, we felt that it was time to do something bigger for the community. And again, thank you for attending this. The reality, unfortunately, that we live in today is that some people in our community are still racist. Some people are anti-Semitic. Some people are homophobic. Some people have all sorts of prejudices for all different reasons. And many times we're not able to explain what they are. And sometimes they're not even able to explain it or understand it themselves. But that is why we're here today. And our hope is not only to be able to bring this community together, but our hope is to also open up some minds that may have been closed or mostly closed, but are willing to listen. And that is the purpose of this event. That is the purpose of events all across the country. These most recent protests were started with the murder of George Floyd. However, racism, discrimination, and prejudice is something that has gone on for thousands of years. The mistreatment of people has gone on for thousands of years. This is not a new topic. Unfortunately, it's a very old topic that we're still dealing with. Angela Davis has said, in a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist, and that is why we are here today. If you are here to support the end of discrimination and the end of racism, but maybe not so much the thinking was to be here for the police, or if you are here to stand for the police, but maybe not so much for racism or discrimination, we ask you equally to listen with an open mind and an open heart, because that's how we grow. The fact that in 2020, we cannot deny that in the United States of America, we are still suffering from prejudice, racism, and discrimination. And these biases are based on any number of differences. Some of us here today have experienced discrimination because of race, creed, color, religion, or sexual orientation. Discrimination and prejudice is wrong, and it cannot be tolerated any longer. Prejudice is learned. Racism is learned. Hate is learned. However, acceptance is learned. Tolerance is learned. And love is learned. And it all starts in the home. We as a society need to be more accepting of others and each other's differences. Because in the end, we are all just people. We are all more similar than we are not. We all want happiness. We all want health. We all want the best for our children. We are all made of skin, bone, the same organs, and we all bleed red. If we can learn to focus on the similarities instead of the differences, we will see that we are more similar than we realized. Too often we see an us versus them mentality. People taking sides. If we can take our blinders off, we could see more clearly that very rarely is it an us versus them. Very rarely is it ever one side completely right or the other side is completely right. We really need to be able to look at all sides. We don't have to be polarized into a Black Lives Matter or back the blue. While the police are on fire right now for actions of some bad cops making some really bad decisions, unfortunately, equal rights is constantly under attack. Do I believe all lives matter? Of course I do. It would be silly to think otherwise. But we're here today to stand up for Black Lives Matter. Because Black lives do matter. And it's important that we understand that Black lives are under attack right now. And I think the biggest misconception about Black Lives Matter is that some people I've heard get upset, and I've seen social media posts where people are upset. Well, my life matters, all lives matter. Well, of course they do. But all lives are not under attack right now. And no one is saying that Black lives matter more. What we're saying is Black lives are not being treated equally. And it's about time that we as a society change that and make sure that we understand that everyone should be treated equally. See, the fact is, here in America, as a white male, I can turn it off when I want to. When I go home, if I don't want to think about social injustice, if I don't want to get involved because of the color of my skin, I don't have to. I can choose to act like nothing is wrong. I can even pretend that it doesn't even exist, and some people do. People of any color do not have that. They are not able to turn it off. So we as a society need to change that thinking. I've seen firsthand how my skin color was treated differently than others. I recall a story a few years back when I was with some friends. And each one of us was a different race and a different color. And we went into a store together. And I turned to share something with them. And when I turned back, I noticed the people that were working in the store were not only watching them, they were following them. These were my friends. These were good people. They were being followed because they were not trusted, because of the color of their skin. Nobody watched me. No one cared what I was doing because of the color of my skin. I've heard stories of friends who have shared with me some of the ordeals that they've had to go through because of the color of their skin. We can no longer pretend that this doesn't make a difference, that this doesn't happen. Until we have experienced the looks, until we've experienced the distrust ourselves on a daily basis, until we have felt the racist mistreatment and the inequality, we can only imagine what that is like. And I know for a fact, imagining something can never come close to the reality. It is our obligation to stand by our brothers and sisters that have been discriminated against for far too long. To be clear, I know that racism is across the board. There is racism in all races, and it's wrong. This never is and never will be just white and black. I can guarantee there's racism in every individual race. And sadly, I also know for a fact, racism occurs even within the same race. That needs to stop. All of our hate needs to stop. Again, we are more similar than we are not. The other issue right now that really is highly controversial is standing by or backing the police. And I understand people across the country are upset. People being murdered by police. I get that. But we cannot judge the actions of all by the actions of a few, by the actions of some. That, in essence, is the same discrimination that we're trying to fight with Black Lives Matter. We need to be open-minded. Stop being short-sighted and closed-minded, and make sure that we can look at everyone equally and everyone as a brother or sister. Police are being attacked and poisoned and murdered, again, for the actions of some. We need to stop acting in that way. Everyone I know, everyone I've spoken with, every police man or woman that I have spoken with is disgusted by the actions of bad police. My own nephew is a policeman in Midland Park, disgusted at the actions of bad police. But again, we cannot judge all police by the actions of some. Neither type of behavior is acceptable. Just as a minority of people are looting and rioting during these protests, it's a minority of people who have been seen on television, in newspapers, doing horrible, horrible things from the police. But again, it is a minority of that. The fact is, the system is flawed, and we need to address that. We can stand for justice and equality and stand for good police. We can stand against racism and discrimination and stand against bad police. We do not have to be on one side or the other. They are not mutually exclusive. We need to stop choosing sides and begin to choose understanding. Understand where we are all coming from. I don't know your personal beliefs. What I do know is that real change begins with honesty. We need to look into ourselves, and we need to look to our neighbors and have those uncomfortable conversations, because we need to find out where those learned behaviors came from and then break those down. My wife and I, we celebrate our children for their differences, as I'm sure many parents here do. Yes, they're similar in some ways, but we celebrate their differences. We as a community, we as a society should be celebrating each other for all of our differences, all of our uniqueness. There's too much destruction and violence with backwards thinking. It is time for forward thinking. We need to move forward in today's society. As far as we've come as a country, I truly feel that we've plateaued in our understanding and our respect for other people. I think that's why we've come to this point in our nation. The civil rights brought us so far, and then I feel as though we hit a plateau. And my hope is that the uncomfortableness that society is feeling right now, that everything we're going through, is what is going to precede the growth that often comes from discomfort. The time is now to make a change. The time is now to take a stand. We must stand against prejudice, stand against hate, discrimination, and racism and violence. The time is now. We have come too far for our country to drop and fall back to the depths that we have without rising bigger and better than we ever have before. To make global change, we need to change within ourselves and with our own four walls. We need to change in our small communities and then expand out to larger communities. Let equality be the new normal. If we are truly to make America great again, that's not coming from one person's slogan. That is coming from each individual American wanting to reach out and help another, help their neighbor, help a stranger. It starts with us. We need to take a stand. We did have candles. Obviously, we see many people did not bring candles. We were hoping to light those. Honestly, that was to be as a symbol that we can light the way for other people in their darkness. It was also to demonstrate. So I want you to pay attention when you light those candles tonight. When you take one candle and light another candle, the original candle gets brighter when we light another. We can do that for one another. We just have to make it a point. We have to make it an honest effort, not just on social media, not just when it's convenient, but all the time. Again, I want to thank you for coming tonight. We do have some other people that would like to speak. So at this